I'm joined by Avery Michaelson, founder and CEO of UCapture. Thank you so much for joining me, Avery.
Thanks, Daniel. Pleasure to be with you today, and nice to be speaking to all your listeners.
Well, thank you. It's nice to speak to you as well. The way I like to start these conversations is really to lay a bit of foundation by really asking first, what problem do you solve with UCapture?
Yeah, so UCapture is solving today the second biggest threat that faces humanity. And I say that jokingly because, as of recording on April 10th, 2020, we're in the middle of the coronavirus COVID-19 crisis. And
Yeah.
so clearly there is an enormous threat facing humanity with that virus. But we've known about the threat of climate change for decades. And that threat is as well not going away. And will reemerge. It's funny to say I look forward to the day when climate change is again the biggest threat facing humanity. I'm just hoping now that the communal sense of social activism, that we're realizing that the globe, the world, we both can and must come together to solve these enormous problems, and hopefully we'll harness the moment and shift towards climate change as we emerge from this.
And so what does UCapture when coronavirus isn't, if we put coronavirus to the side for a minute, which is very difficult to do, all things considered, how does, or rather, what does UCapture really focus on solving? So you mentioned climate change. Is there anything in specific regarding climate change that
Yeah.
you focus on?
So climate change is, to me, actually a fairly well understood problem at this
Hmm.
point. We, on the one hand, know what's causing it. That is man-made greenhouse gas emissions,
Yeah.
our carbon footprint, the things that we do that impact climate change and global warming, like driving cars, releasing CO2, burning fossil fuels in airplanes, cars, our factories, our power plants. It's causing greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, global warming. So we actually understand the problem fairly well at this point, and the goal, what we need to do, is to go carbon neutral,
Hmm.
right? As individuals, as institutions, as society, the planet needs to go carbon neutral quite quickly, and perhaps even go towards what you might call carbon negative or climate
Okay.
positive, reducing and removing more CO2 than we've put into it, to be able to thwart the worst consequences of climate change. We already know that climate change is causing many real changes in these threats and in problems for humans. And at this point, we're actually just trying to stop the worst outcomes
Yeah.
from happening through concerted effort over the next decade. So what we need to do is decarbonize the planet. Now, go ahead if you have a question.
Yeah, I was going to say there's you're mentioning decarbonize. There's a word on your website which I find really interesting called negative, or it's a term rather, negative externalities.
Yeah.
What is a negative externality? I think that's like it's an economics term.
Yeah, exactly. So in the context of UCapture, the negative externality is carbon emissions.
Mhm.
So a negative externality is something bad that happens as a result of this transaction. So it's not actually the main thing. It is this externality, this thing that happens as a result. So let's, come up with a fun example of what is a positive externality. Well, let's say you walk by the bakery and you smell the cakes baking, you smell the cookies, and it smells good. That wasn't the product. They weren't selling the smell. That was just a positive externality, this positive thing that happened as a result of them baking these cakes. Well, in the flip side of that, the jet fuel that is burned is not burned to cause greenhouse gas emissions. It's
Mhm.
burned to fly you from A to B. That's the positive thing, but this is the negative externality.
Got it.
And in this context, we can call that the cost of carbon. Okay, that is the cost of these carbon emissions. And
Mhm.
so where that brings me is to the real problem of climate change is not the science of what's causing it, it's the financial economic problem of how to pay for it. Because on the other hand, while we know the problem, we know the solution, right? You You plant trees, not that this guy's a tree, but you plant trees. They soak up CO2. You fund renewable energy projects to decarbonize the energy grid. You do methane capture projects at
Hmm.
landfills and dairy farms that reduce that harmful greenhouse gas. So we know the things to reduce CO2 emissions. We know what causes it. What we don't know is how to pay for, how to finance all of that carbon offsetting, and that process to going carbon neutral. And the problem is that I, as an individual, don't want to pay for it, and you don't want to pay for it, and the taxpayers don't want to pay for it. And so what we're left with is, how do we get the cost of carbon into consumption in a way that works? How do we build the green economy? And fundamentally, that is what UCapture is doing. We are building the green economy because what we've created is a way to get the cost of carbon
Hmm.
into consumption in a way that is a win-win-win for consumers, companies, and the planet. Okay, and so that's, a pretty powerful statement. Let me unpack, how do we do that, right? How have
Yep.
we made offsetting CO2 a win for companies, a win for consumers, and a win for the planet? Well, companies, have a tendency to do what is profitable, right? As they should. That's why a company exists. And so what we needed to do is make how do we make offsetting CO2 a profitable thing? Well, if you can turn it into a marketing concept, if you can show a company that I will attract customers, I will retain those customers will think more positive thoughts about me as a brand if I offset their CO2.
Hmm.
And so that just by offsetting the CO2, which has a cost, but by willing to be paying that cost, if I get more customers, get more traffic, beat my competition, then it'll be worth it. Then it will be profitable for me to do that. So what UCapture created is that connector, that platform that says, as an individual, I care about my carbon footprint being offset, and I'm more likely to shop with you as a result if you offset my carbon footprint. So that's the theory and emotion behind it. How have we carried that out,
Hmm.
technically and in practice? Is we knew that once we had solved making carbon offsetting free by getting the companies that we shop with, Expedia and Target and Walmart and GoDaddy and Groupon, which are UCapture partners. How do I make that a very simple experience? And we did that first with a browser extension. So what we've built is a browser extension available for Chrome and for Firefox and for Microsoft Edge and Opera, Vivaldi, Brave browsers. You install that with just 3 clicks onto your browser, and now you can go about your internet life, shop like normal with over 25,000 stores. And you see the browser extension activate automatically with 1 click. And that's triggering now that website, the site that I'm shopping on. It's the UCapture extension is saying to that website, hey, I want my carbon footprint offset, and I'm here because of that. And so that triggers that site to pay UCapture a commission. That's the affiliate marketing commission that they're paying to us. We
And
then
so
use,
they don't, sorry, just to jump in there,
please.
does the store in that case lose? So they're paying you. So in theory, that I guess from their point of view, they're seeing that, like you were saying, as a bit of a marketing cost because it makes them look good. It's showing that they're offsetting some of their uh,
That they're
carbon.
supporting a sustainable thing, because
Right.
it's actually not the company, it's not Expedia or Target that gets to claim that carbon offset. Their win in this is you are a consumer, right? And let's take a very stark example of, I need to go and buy my next plane flight, right? And I have a choice of where I'm going to get that plane flight. I could go to Expedia, which is a UCapture partner, and have Expedia pay to offset my carbon footprint, or I could go to not UCapture partner site,
Right.
and I still end up in seat 13A on Delta, and I still paid $309, plus taxes and fees. Both options, but in this one, carbon offset, this one hurting the planet. It makes it an easy
Yeah.
choice, and so for Expedia, that's worth it. That's worth it for them to pay to get that loyalty and to get chosen over these other sites,
It's
right?
cool because I remember there was I remember when last time I bought a flight, I can't remember where, it may have been EasyJet. They have, you can donate like a pound or a dollar, whatever the case is in your currency, to offset your carbon emissions for that flight. And that's something I'll happily pay, because I believe in the importance of offsetting carbon. If there were a way that I didn't have to pay an additional pound, it's not a lot. I mean, if you're paying, like you said, a $310 for a flight, 311 isn't going to make a big difference, but it's still, you feel it, And if instead they say, hey, congratulations, a company like UCapture says, congratulations, you've just offset your flight, and by the way, you haven't paid extra for it, that's even better. It's even
for
easier.
free. You got
Yeah.
it right. It's better because we've gotten the company to pay for it. But let me come. I have a point that I want to come back to, but I want to talk about. I'm really glad that you brought out that checkout
Yeah.
thing, because and congratulations that you are one of the people that would check that box. But here's the thing: this gets back to the core of UCapture. Fundamentally, people don't want to pay for it. I'll give you a guess. What is the uptake on that check the box? What percentage of people when they're checking out do check the box?
I'm debating right now whether I should be pessimistic or optimistic. So I'll kind of
Right.
be in the middle and say, my gut is telling me, and this is very pessimistic, but my gut
Okay.
is telling me like 1 to 2%.
You're smart.
Is that right?
You're smart in not trusting, having little faith in society. It's actually under 1%. Right.
Seriously.
Right. And so what that's showing though is exactly the strength of what you capture. Because would what percent, and I won't, exactly know the number to throw at you, but what percent of people would say yes if it was free?
Yeah, I
Much
mean,
higher than 1%, right? Much higher than 1% will say yes for something that's
or
free.
better
Yeah,
yet, yeah.
sure. I like the environment. It's not that I don't like the environment. I just like the green in my wallet too.
Yeah, that I like
So
that green more than the green of the environment.
it's and we're saying, you know what, you don't have to choose. And guess what? This is where it just gets so much sweeter. Is that how when you're shopping and you get to the checkout page and you look for a discount code. You look for how can I now save money on this? Well, the UCapture extension, we as UCapture get all of the discount codes from these 25,000 partners. We package them into the extension. When you get to the checkout page, the extension says, I'm on the checkout page. Let me test all of these coupon codes for you, and it automatically applies the one that saves you the most money. So you can save money and save the planet with UCapture. Someone
And what
should
does
make
that
that like
do?
a slogan or something.
Save money, save the planet. So
If you don't like both of those things, I'm sorry, stop listening. If you don't like saving money and you don't like saving the planet, this isn't the podcast for you.
yeah, exactly right. And it's so interesting. I mean, kind of on a broader point, one thing I'm learning is that a lot of sustainability practices are actually financially sustainable as well, meaning both for companies, as we were talking about with the Expedia example, and for individuals as well, because oftentimes it means like, reuse something, don't buy something else. That's a simple, example of saving the environment and in the same way saving money. And what's interesting is that you're actually really highly encouraging people to use your product by finding coupon codes. And again, it goes back to this point where if a partner like Expedia versus their competition, I think they'd be more than happy to maybe take 10% off of their price, and offset some carbon in order to keep that business.
Well, and here's the thing, in all cases, both of those reward systems are stipulated by the online partner, right? They get to determine how much is the commission that they're paying us. They get
I
to
see.
determine if they're providing a coupon code. That's still their business. So why we know that this is sustainable
Hmm.
is, and why we know it's a win-win-win, is because the companies have defined the economics. They're
I
able to
see.
say this amount of loyalty and this traffic and what you're doing is worth a 2% commission to me, and I'm willing to provide them a 10% off coupon. So we know it works for them because they've defined the economics. We
You're
know it
just
works
playing
for
their
the
game.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when you pay a commission, I'm going to use it for carbon offsets, and that
Gotcha.
says your had consumption carbon footprint over here. We're finally got the cost of carbon
Hmm.
in there. We let the user choose which carbon offset project they want to support. We have over 24 on the platform. I think it's 25 as of today. Projects on the platform. They're all independently verified, right? So by leading agencies like Verified Carbon Standard, like Climate Action Reserve, like Gold Standard, who then are out there certifying and providing the protocols that say that these projects that we're funding are legit, have a lot of credibility, and you as a user get to now have your project funded at no extra cost to you when you're shopping, and in many
Right.
cases, actually, in a way that you've saved money while accumulated the carbon offsets you need to be carbon neutral.
So what are these carbon offsets exactly?
Yeah, so I'll highlight a few projects that I love them all, but they break down in different categories. One of them, very intuitive, reforestation,
Hmm.
right? You plant trees, trees soak up CO2. Fantastic. Now, we've got reforestation projects in California, in Oregon, in Zimbabwe, in Australia, in Brazil. Uh, and the concept, the science behind it, very simple: plant the trees. But what we also get is all of these really cool societal externalities, positive externalities
Nice.
of that project. When we're planting trees in Zimbabwe and it's creating this contiguous nature reserve for endangered species, boom, endangered species are getting help. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
When we're doing that in California, it was to preserve a large tract that is now turned into a public recreation space,
Hmm.
right? So we're finding it's not just the environment; it's also these societal benefits that come with these projects. Or another category like renewable energy, right? We have wind farms in Texas and in India that we've supported where those wind farms are replacing the use of fossil fuel. And those are wind farms that were only financed by the sale and purchase of these carbon offsets that we've done. So it's our funding of these carbon offset projects that is what unlocks the financing to put that wind farm in rural India and displace that coal power plant. But again, back to the societal benefits, that same wind farm project created a school for girls to have public health education, and better clean water
Yeah, that's
access
awesome.
in and around these things. So just fantastic projects that you're able to support and know and learn through our platform and support for free just using the extension.
So basically what happens is from a logistical level, because I actually, excuse me, I actually did uh, download it, and I've been going to different websites where I already have subscriptions that I'm noticing because it keeps popping up being like, hey, you're using this website. So did you know that you can activate UCapture here? And I just think, well, that's good to know. I already have a subscription. Um, Maybe next time. So, but it's cool. So basically, I mean, on a very logistical level, I would go to a website, let's say Expedia, like you said. I find my flights and go to the checkout page, and then the little UCapture pop-up happens. It's in kind of in the upper right-hand corner where the extensions are, at least on Chrome. And then I can click activate. And as you said, it will run through all of the coupon codes, apply any that work. And then from there, I buy, and then the Expedia in this case will pay you a commission. And then you just take all of that commission or a portion of that commission, and then
Right. So Expedia pays us a commission. We always use two-thirds of that commission for
mhm,
the verified offset project. So no matter how much we've earned, and in a sense, I'll tell you, all of the revenue that we have goes towards combating the planet because we need to build more technology. We have more systems and
yeah.
tools and services that we want to deliver, and then scale that on a global basis. So for a long time, we're completely for purpose, dumping all of our revenue back into doing more, making more impact.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, well, yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's really important to consider the fact that money needs to go back into the business as well for it to grow, for it to scale.
Sure.
You have to do marketing. So yeah, that's a really crucial part of.
One of the other elements that I highlight because maybe the people that are listening at this point are saying this is too good to be true. Where's the catch? You know, One thing that you might be thinking is about data and about privacy.
Yep, I was going to
And
ask him.
the reason why I'm leaning into that is because we have such a strong answer on that. It's actually not the catch, so I don't want it to sink in as potentially it is. We completely value your privacy and your security. And so to that point, our browser extension is not tracking you around the internet. We're not building a profile of the websites that you visit, trying to build this, hoover up as much data as we can. Fundamentally, that's two reasons. I know that's not what you want as a user,
Hmm.
and so I didn't want to build a system and a process and a reason for people to not use UCapture. The point of UCapture is to save the planet from climate change, not to
Yeah.
build a marketing profile on you. But secondarily, it's about that. It's why is that data collected? It's collected to build a marketing profile about you as a user so I can get you to shop more, shop more. Well, guess what? I'm not asking you to shop to save the planet. I want you to save the planet when you shop.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not pushing marketing at you and saying, oh, go take this plane flight to save the planet. What I'm saying is, oh, you're going to take a plane flight? Let's make sure we get that carbon offset. Right.
Hmm.
And I'm catching you when you are shopping and saying, hey, we got to do this with the environment in mind.
Yeah.
Not so
I think
distinction. And that's what leads us to be a very data light, approach.
yeah, I think that's a very strong answer because it's easy to say, well, we don't want your data, but that doesn't really mean anything unless you explain why, and it's very clear there.
Sure.
As far as because a part of I think a big part of what gets people excited about UCapture will be the coupon codes, obviously. So saving money, and then the second part of your slogan on your T-shirt, which says "Save the Planet." Those two elements there are crucial. Um,
Thunder and lightning.
exactly, yeah, they go together. I think there's a third part, which is the referral program. So
Sure.
that's where you're actually encouraging your friends and other companies potentially to also use UCapture.
Yeah, and it's to use it in kind of way because there's all about my consumption, but we think it's important to spread this message around the globe rapidly. It's not going to be one person or 1% or 10% of the population that's going to be able to solve climate change. It does need to be a communal thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm excited because this tool, because it's free, because it's easy, it actually is for the masses. The problem with other things that are check the box and asking people to pay, that's slightly less democratic. That's only for the people who can afford, think about climate change and that thing as a
Yeah.
luxury to even be able to care about. And so we can't, think that as we try to bring 6 billion more people into the consuming world and population, that asking them to pay for carbon offsets and paying to be carbon neutral is an inappropriate, way. I think asking companies to build this into their business model to the point of, if you can't operate a business model profitably without paying for your own cost of carbon, is that even a business model that should exist, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if the only way that you're profitable is by dumping a negative externality on the environment, time to re-examine that industry as a whole. And I think that is the approach of things like carbon tax, and that's kind of the idea of what we're doing here. But we're doing it in a much more capitalist, rather than a regulatory command and control thing. We're saying we're going to let consumers dictate. We're going to let consumers say, hey, these companies are going to win and these companies are going to lose by being part of the green economy, or not. And UCapture wants to be that middleman to allow them, that place to vote and vote with their wallet.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I think it's like you said, it's communal, so it makes sense for people to tell others and to tell their friends and to keep the message going.
Yeah, I got on a tangent there, and I didn't even answer your question about the referrals. And so, what we're doing there is anyone who signs up gets their own referral link. Mine is ucapture.com/Avery because my username is Avery. So when you sign up, you'll get your own by referring and sharing that link on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, however you want to do that. Send a text, send a DM to your friend. When they sign up and join UCapture, you will be earning a 10% carbon offset bonus on all of their activity. So if that friend offsets 1,000 pounds, you're going to earn 100 pounds. And now what this gives is a way for you to reduce your carbon footprint even further without consuming at all. Because so many people say, well, I really don't consume and I don't like to shop online because I like to shop local. And, guess what? We support all of those great things. Consume less, fantastic.
Yeah.
Shop local, sure, that's great. But how can I participate in UCapture then? Well, just get everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot of CO2 funded in your name just by getting the others.
I think it's a really interesting time right now to take the opportunity to offset your online shopping because we're all stuck indoors, like you said. We're in the middle of coronavirus, and it'll be a good day again when we can talk about climate change as the biggest problem. So yeah, I mean,
Well, and we're seeing that very much as a trend and theme that's well talked about is that online shopping is doing well, and we're certainly seeing that in our data, and that'll continue to be probably a lasting trend. A lot of people will adopt new consumption habits in a way,
yeah,
and so we encourage them to take as they're coming to and figuring out more ways of shopping online to also figure out how to optimize that shopping online because they're shopping online, but then when you can shop online while saving money and saving the planet with just 3 clicks, it's kind of like don't live in the Stone Age.
yeah, exactly.
Well, see the light, get maximize that online shopping, get your rewards, get your benefits because they're out there, they're available. And if saving the planet is a reward and a system, something that matters to you, I strongly suggest take the 3 seconds, 3 clicks, UCapture.com, and install the extension.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so there's 25,000 plus partners that you work with.
Yeah, we've got that many domains that are affiliated with us. When you visit them, the extension will be popping up and activating,
It's
and it
amazing.
cuts across all types of shopping categories. It's travel, it's electronics, it's clothing, it's financial services, food and beverage, all types of things. Big names in all verticals, and it's also a global spread of companies. It's not just U.S. companies. We've done a great job of recruiting websites in Australia and in the UK and in plenty of parts of Europe, India and Thailand and
That's
South
amazing.
America, everywhere. Because what I'm excited about UCapture is everything we do is a global concept. Online shopping happens everywhere. Climate change, global warming is relevant everywhere. Saving money is something people like to do everywhere. So it's something that actually can be a globally scalable solution to climate change. And we're already seeing strong interest in many markets.
That's awesome. Is when's Amazon going to be part of it?
Well, Jeff, if you're listening, would love to connect with Amazon as soon as possible. They're the 800 or 1,600 pound gorilla in online retail, and as a result, they set their own terms for affiliate marketing. So they don't, often work with affiliate marketing publishers like us.
Mm,
Who offer reward systems in any way, whether it's a donation to charities, some environmental purpose like ours. So that's a limiting thing. What we think and hope is that there is some flexibility to that when we get a little bit bigger and attract their attention and are able to articulate our value proposition to them even better. But I think it's already there. It's already very clear. This is something that consumers want,
yeah.
and we know it's something that Amazon wants. And we praise the efforts of what they've done, to be more sustainable as a company. We just think this would be a fantastic tie-up as well as soon as we're able to get it.
Totally. And I mean, one thing that I do, at least in the time being, and hopefully many others are doing this as well. In fact, I know that many others are doing, is going to smile.amazon.com or .co.uk or whatever your extension is, and picking whatever charity you want to donate to. I always pick some sort of tree planting, reforestation, like you said. And on UCapture, I picked the Brazilian rainforest reforestation. I'm a tree hugger. That's why I have this little plant
Great.
next to me. Yeah, so that's the I think that's, for the time being, at least one way to make sure that your Amazon shopping is offset. From an impact standpoint, uh, what how do we know our impact? So let's say I'm shopping and clicking activate on my UCapture little pop-up that comes up, and I'm spending money, saving the planet, saving the money as well. How do I know how much impact I have?
Yeah, so we inform you after each transaction. This is exactly how many pounds or kilograms of CO2 based on your setting, how much we've offset in your name. So it was the project that you selected, and we're telling you, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds exactly how much was offset. Now we're able to do that because those are fixed elements of information that we have coming in, and it's not actually how much we offset is not in proportion to the impact of,
Mhm.
the actual carbon footprint of the thing, because the commission percentage, the amount of money that we earned isn't in relation to that. And in fact, in many cases, if I dare say most cases, we're offsetting more than the carbon footprint of the item or purchase. Like, I'll give you a for example. When you do a purchase on Groupon, Groupon pays a pretty decent commission because it's a reasonably high margin online business. So let's
Yeah.
just say they pay a 5% commission, and you were to get a $50 $50 dinner for four package. Okay, well, no, the carbon footprint of a dinner for four is, I'm going to say, somewhere around 100 pounds of CO2. We can be generous and bump that up later, but what we'll be earning with that, when we had a $2.50 commission, we're able to put that towards, that'll offset about a third of a ton of CO2, so around
Wow.
700 pounds of CO2, right? And so, we're offsetting 700 pounds, the carbon footprint of the thing. I don't know what restaurant you went to, and I don't know that it was a dinner for four. And there would be a lot of data that you would need to provide me for me to give you that sort of estimate. So, back to the idea of respecting your privacy, you would have to tell me so many things about your purchase and who you are and what you bought, that I'm not telling you the footprint. I'm just telling you the positive impact that we made.
That's awesome. And so I can track the amount of kilograms or pounds of CO2 that I save in my profile on UCapture.
In your profile at ucapture.com/account, but then actually we've built something that I think is really cool to
Mhm.
gamify the experience, is this leaderboard. And so you go to the leaderboard section, you see yourself relative to all the other users, and you have avatars that are unlocked with different fun forest critters in them and stuff like that. And so there's that leaderboard, and then we actually are working with a lot of universities, because universities have a pledge and have a goal of going carbon neutral themselves.
Mm.
And so we'll have a link like ucapture.com/pen, which is my alma mater. When you visit that link and join UCapture, the carbon offsets that you're creating are going towards your university, going towards its goal of going carbon neutral. So here's a way for you to contribute to your school's sustainability goal for
Yeah.
free. And now it becomes this community engagement tool and technique for, hey, University of Pennsylvania, we need to go carbon neutral. Join us in that fight. Whether you're a student, a faculty, an alumni, just a fan of the school, you can join at that link and help the school go carbon neutral.
That's awesome. That gamification, the leaderboard element, it's amazing how well it works because I've seen the leaderboard and I just see all these people who've done more than I have. And I'm just thinking, oh man, it's on.
Well, it's time to start sharing your links so you can earn some referral CO2 and climb up the leaderboard without even spending money.
There you go. That's the secret to success here.
You got it.
Well, I love the concept. I think I'm a big fan of kind of quote unquote accidental uh, environmental friendliness in the sense that you just do your thing, live your life, and as you go about it, you're able to help the planet.
Yeah, I
And
would I would call it a nudge, right?
yeah,
It's a small nudge in the right direction, a simple thing. And while I support all of the grandiose actions,
hmm
I'm very much a pragmatist, a realist who realizes that's as well not going to be the solution to climate change. If we're relying on being able to get the masses really impassioned and really excited, um, I think we're doomed. So we need to actually focus on what are very small actions that have very large impact, and magnified impact,
yeah,
such that we actually don't need to ask so much of the masses for us to be able to solve the problem, but still get everyone engaged in it. And so I think you're right on this is a nudge, a small action that people can take, but the impact is real. The impact can be enough to actually be carbon neutral and be solving the problem, not part of
yeah.
the problem.
And I think it's so cool that I was looking at your at the carbon project offset projects that you have listed, because you mentioned you had 25, and there are already two that had been funded to capacity and they were closed.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
part
awesome
of
that
that
you're
is you know, this is a market. Carbon offsets is a market, and for us as a buyer in this market, counterintuitive logic, I want the price to go up. I want the price of the thing that I'm buying to go up, because what that means is that there's more demand
right.
for carbon offsets. There's more demand. More people want to plant trees and do wind farms, and so as that demand, as that price goes up, the supply goes up, and that's
Hmm.
really what we need. More supply means more trees, more wind farms, more methane capture. So
Absolutely.
what I'm here on our side is trying to drive demand, right? Trying to drive that demand that raises the prices so more carbon offset projects happen. Simple economic theory. How do we build that green economy? How do we get companies paying for the carbon offsets? Make it profitable for them. Make it easy, fun, and free for users.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to your point about, grandiose projects versus the little ones, I think it's a really important thing to think about because, like you said, there are these really grandiose plans, and some of them are amazing and really really important. I don't think that means that the smaller things are any less valuable. I think it's a combination of if you think of like trying to fill up a space with just big boulders, you're still going to have a lot of cracks and crevices that you can get through, and you need to be able to fill a space with not just big boulders. You also need to put in medium-sized ones, and then small little pebbles and rocks, and eventually sand. And when you can do that, then you completely fill up the space. And uh, I think that that's one way to look at it is you need so many different types, a diversification, so to speak, of projects and methods to really save the planet. It's not going to just be these big projects
Well,
or
that's
little
that's an
projects.
awesome metaphor that you did create there, Daniel. And what I would to try to add on to that metaphor that is, if we're having all these rocks and pebbles and things, what makes them sit together is having something that washes them all down into place to fill those things. And what I would say is that is the funding, because none of these things get to happen if there isn't the funding for all these
Yeah.
projects. And that's actually where I see UCapture as a bit that prime mover. If we can get a lot of funding for all of those different projects and physical things that haven't happened, then that's where we want to bring.
Yeah.
We're not going to be the tree. We're going to be the water that rained down the money to go plant those trees. And so that's where I think we have a fundamental position in reshaping, the system change, not climate change, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And I think it's the work you're doing is really, really cool. And as we're starting to wrap up here, one question I like to ask, which is more of like an inspiration thing, is um, when you're not busy, saving money and saving the planet and helping others doing the same, what do you personally do, like on a day-to-day basis, to be environmentally friendly, whether at home or at the office or working from home, etc.?
Yeah, well, I have definitely tried to reduce, right? The ways of going carbon neutral are really only two things. You have to reduce your actual footprint, and then you have to offset the remainder. So, the ways that I look to reduce are kind of like anybody might, with less meat eating and carpooling and in general less travel. But with UCapture, I've had the opportunity and had the fortune of having to go and pursue opportunities around the world for UCapture, be it in Australia or in Spain, where we've been in accelerator programs. And
Mm.
so, for me personally, it's about when I'm consuming, making sure that I'm targeting UCapture partners. Like I offset 4 tons of CO2 when I filed my taxes last year with
Wow.
TurboTax, right? An incredibly climate positive action. And so, number one, that's what I'm up to, is to try to make sure that I'm targeting UCapture users or UCapture partners when I can. But kind of a more macro conceptual thing about where we fit into this is because it has so much relevance on the conversation today that and I kind of hate how probably polarizing even just saying this statement is, saying that the cure can't be worse than the problem itself, right? And we're hearing about that in coronavirus, and that we can't kill the economy just to save the lives. And I think that's a difficult calculus, certainly, to make. And I don't want to get too political, but I think somewhat that same concept applies very appropriately to climate change. Is that if the approach to stopping climate change is to kill the economy, we may end up opening up a whole other set of problems, and that's actually why I think there is reluctance. Anytime there's reluctance to climate change, I don't think it's because those people actually don't like the planet or even don't get the science. It's that they're talking their wallet. It's that they have a vested economic interest in fossil fuels.
Hmm.
And so, of course, you understand why those people don't believe in climate change. No, they just want to protect their income, their assets, and what it is. And so, as we try to as we try to solve climate change, we also can't use killing the economy in its entirety as the solution. We need to find a way to make the economy working for us. And so, what we're doing with that is providing the pathway for the cleaner and greener, the companies that offset that CO2, for them to continue to win, and the ones that don't to not, right?
Yeah.
To fall by the wayside. But we won't be able to make progress on the other SDGs of lifting, a few more billion people out of poverty and improving, just life and well-being for all of the emerging economies and everyone in the world, if we're going to say, no more refrigerators and no more TVs and no more driving in cars and no more plane flights. Because while those things have a negative externality of climate change, they do also have a positive thing, and that positive thing is being able to get to work, being able to keep your food refrigerated, and being able to go visit grandmother over the holidays on a
Yeah.
plane.
That's absolutely right. And I think that's a really good point. It's finding a way to be sustainable and simultaneously to, not hamper human achievement, uh, basically human, I suppose, desire to a certain degree. I think it's finding this balance of being able to do both, and living in harmony with nature and the planet.
Yeah, and fundamentally, I just don't believe an approach of thou shalt not is a successful one.
Yeah.
People are going to do, right? And so how do we figure out a way that when they're doing, that we solve the real problems? Consumption is not the problem. Carbon footprint is the problem.
Hmm.
So let's
Yeah.
solve that.
That's a good point. So if people want to solve that by downloading UCapture and getting involved, or learning more about the company and what you're doing and all your projects, where can people find you and where can people get started?
Yeah, very simple. It's ucapture.com. That's the letter U, UCapture.com. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, you'll get signed up. You'll get the browser extension installed on your computer, your desktop. We'll have our mobile app coming out in the coming months, so
Oh,
stay
cool.
tuned for that. And it's as simple as that. Sign up for free, install the extension, set it and forget it.
Excellent. And it really is quite that, set it and forget it. I mean, I've installed it and pretty much forgotten about it. And then like I was saying earlier, sometimes I just pop onto a website and it's like, oh, you can save money and save the planet here. So yeah, you capture with the letter U, really easy. Avery, thank you so much for your time. Really interesting to talk to you. I think you're onto a really cool idea, and it seems like you're making really great progress with it. So, best of luck, and I hope you help everyone save money and save the planet.
Well, thanks, Daniel. Thanks for the time today, and thanks for joining in on that mission. Look forward to having some new users through this conversation.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star rating. And also, please subscribe, whether on your podcast app or on YouTube. And that way you can be the first to know about new episodes. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.